I was impressed with the introduction of Blackmagic's new cinema camcorder at NAB. They now have a 2.5K camcorder available for $2,995 US.
So explain to me why that's important.
It's important because it puts a very high level of resolution, of, well, not video quality per se, but resolution anyway, in the hands of a niche that really hasn't been able to find a home for some time.
So do you think getting it down below $5,000 makes it prosumer?
I would say yes. There have been, quote, professional, close quote, camcorders that have cost 3 times that, meaning $9,000 before. JVC had a 4K cam for under 5K, and it deserves at least a nod. But the issue, I think, is still price. For one thing, if you think AVC HD is difficult to process, try 4K. For another thing, we're getting up past the limits of what the human eye can perceive anyway. For a third thing, film quality has traditionally been defined as 3K, and for a fourth thing, in practice that really isn't the case. To wit, the people who have actually gone out and measured film quality have found that for a release print it's about 1,000 lines of VRES, and for what you actually see in the theater the average is around 750. Plus the contrast ratio is only about 500 to 1.
Alright, so for us non-math geeks, explain what all this means.
What it means is that you could argue that film quality has been attained already. And this is important because of the small-time producer. I'm very happy with what Blackmagic has done, but I have the feeling that I'm not going to rush out and buy one of their units just yet. The fact that they're getting back orders upon back orders notwithstanding. The small producer for years and years and years has wanted, quote, film quality, close quote, has wanted, quote, cinevideo, close quote, without having to cough up his firstborn child. I remember when JVC came out with their 720p unit, this was like 5 years ago. I went to this big presentation at the Palms. Yes, the Palms Casino, the George Maloof property. And JVC was effectively selling its 720p and its 1080i products. Well, now we're getting into feature creep, if I can call it that, or at least rising expectations. And that could be a hole with no bottom. And on top of that, the small-time producer shouldn't fall prey to that. The whole idea is being able to do what the big kids can do without having to be one of the big kids. That was the idea behind Final Cut Pro, why everybody loved that. Suddenly it was possible to do Oscar-quality film editing for $1,000 plus the price of a Mac. What passed for film quality in the old days was, well, to start with 720p or 1080i, then it was 1080p, and now it's going up with, with AVC HD, and now it's going up even beyond that. And I have the feeling that the small producer would be better off thinking of a convergent standard. And I have a strong hint for him in that respect. Determine what film quality was defined as being several years ago, and when you get to it, for gosh sakes, stop trying to climb up further.
Yeah, it just seems to me that all of the stuff on the camera end doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless you have a really, really good idea what, how it's going to be viewed, how it's going to be distributed. So, if you're making, if you're taking these brand new cameras that are giving you pictures that are better than the naked eye can see, and then it's turning around and being put on YouTube or Netflix or some other streaming kind of distribution. What have we got now? Amazon has got streaming.
And that's even more of an issue when you get outside the movie theaters and you start watching stuff at home. There are people watching their high-definition televisions with no idea that the programs they're watching aren't high definition.
Well, they're not even watching broadcast programs anymore. They're streaming it through their iBox. So it's not just going from their cable to their high definition television. It's going from their cable to their computer, to their iBox, to their high definition television.
The point of the matter is that you can't be sure that the viewer is watching this thing with the same kind of technical enthusiasm. I want to say technical ecstasy as a nod to Black Sabbath. The same kind of technical enthusiasm that the producers, and I mean that in the broader sense of the term, are putting into it. I've heard 3K defined as film quality and vice versa all the time. Well, in practice, it ain't necessarily so. It really is about 1,000 for a release print. The average really is about 750 once it actually gets into the theater, at least if the study I saw was correct. And the study I saw was a lot more responsible than most. They got one academic each from 3 different countries, and they went out and actually measured these things on site. And I haven't seen anyone else who's engaged in even that level of responsibility in their research.
So what do you think is going to happen at NAB 2013?
I have no idea. Last year the big deal was 3D, and that really failed to catch on. There were a few areas in which it was welcome, but for the most part the public just ignored it for the 10,000th time in a row, I might add.
Oh, so you don't agree with James Cameron that it's time for the 3D TV?
James Cameron redid Titanic in 3D, and he's going to lose his shirt if it isn't a huge hit. Of course he's selling the idea that 3D is inevitable. Of course he's saying it is inevitable, Mr. Anderson.